The gateway was the largest structure Park had ever seen. It stretched across the darkness of space like a city made of light and metal. Millions of beings passed through its halls every day. Ships from 1,000 worlds docked at its ports. Trade deals worth more than entire planets were signed in its chambers. And somewhere in this massive place had been assigned to guard a single door. He walked through the crowded corridors with his orders displayed on a small screen in his hand. Gate 7, Restricted Diplomatic Sector, Authorized Personnel Only. The words were simple enough. The job seemed simple enough, but had learned long ago that simple assignments often became complicated. Was 34 years old. He had served in Earth's military for 12 years before joining the Galactic Trade Consortium's security force. Humans were still new to the galactic community. They had only made first contact 60 years ago. In a universe where some species had traveled between stars for 100,000 years, humans were considered children. Weak children with soft bodies and short lives. He found Gate 7 at the end of a long hallway. The gate itself was beautiful. Ancient symbols covered its frame. The metal had a golden shine that seemed to glow from within. Beyond this gate lay rooms where the most powerful beings in the galaxy made decisions that affected billions of lives. Took his position. He stood straight with his plasma rifle held across his chest. He checked his equipment. Everything was in order. Now he simply had to wait. The first aliens to pass by they were tall creatures that looked like insects. Their bodies were covered in hard shells of blue and green. They had 4 arms and large eyes that saw in many directions at once. 2 of them stopped when they noticed. "Look at this," one said to the other. Its voice was a series of clicks that's translator turned into words. "They sent a human to guard the diplomatic gate." "Perhaps it is a joke," the second one replied. "Some kind of strange human humor." They both made a sound that understood as laughter. Then they walked away, still clicking with amusement. Did not react. He kept his eyes forward and his body still. An hour passed. Then 2. The crowds moved through the corridor in waves. Most aliens ignored completely. Some stared at him with curiosity. A few made comments to their companions, always about how small he was, how fragile humans seemed, how strange it was to see one in such an important position. A group of merchants approached. They were massive creatures. They stood over 8 feet tall with thick gray skin like armor. Their faces had no expressions that could read. They were known throughout the galaxy as warriors and traders. One of them stopped directly in front of. It looked down at him the way a person might look at an insect on the ground. "Human," it said. Its voice was deep like thunder. "Do you know what would happen if I decided to walk through this gate?" Looked up at the creature. He kept his voice calm and professional. "You would be stopped." The laughed, the sound shook the air. "Stopped. By you, I could break every bone in your body with one hand." "That may be true," said, "but you are not authorized to pass through this gate, and I am the one guarding it." The stared at him for a long moment. Then it made a sound of disgust and walked away with its companions. Heard them talking as they left. "Humans have no sense of reality," one said. "They do not understand their place in the universe." Remained at his post. He did not care what they thought about humans. He had a job to do. Near the end of his shift, a diplomat approached the gate. It wore fine robes decorated with symbols of high status. It held out a credentials card without looking at. "Open the gate," it commanded. Took the card and scanned it. The results appeared on his screen. The card was fake. It was a good fake, probably expensive, but still fake. "I cannot allow you to pass," said. "These credentials are not valid." The finally looked at him. Its compound eyes reflected its image 100 times over. "Do you know who I am?" "No," said honestly, "but I know your credentials are false. I am High Minister and of the Third Circle. I have business beyond this gate. You will open it now." Press the alert button on his communicator. "Security control, this is Officer Park at Gate 7. I have a situation." The stepped closer. It towered over by nearly 3 feet. "You are making a terrible mistake, human. I have connections that you cannot imagine. I will have you removed from this station. I will have you sent back to your primitive planet in disgrace." Did not step back. He did not raise his weapon. He simply stood his ground and waited. 2 security officers arrived within minutes. They examined the credentials and confirmed findings. The fake, that was escorted away, still making threats, still promising revenge. The officers looked at before they left. "You did not move," one observed. They are known for their intimidation. Most guards would have let him pass to avoid trouble. I was told to guard this gate, said. That is what I am doing. The officers exchanged a look that could not interpret. Then they nodded and walked away. Shift ended an hour later. His replacement was another human, a woman named Lisa who worked as a communications officer but sometimes filled security rotations. I heard about she said. Word travels fast on this station. People are talking about the human who would not move. I just did my job, said. Lisa smiled. That is exactly why they are talking. Around here, doing your job without asking for something in return is considered strange. They do not know what to make of you. Gathered his equipment and prepared to leave. They can think whatever they want. I will be back tomorrow. He walked away through the crowded corridor. Aliens of a dozen species moved around him, most of them larger and stronger than he was. He heard whispers as he passed. He saw eyes watching him with new interest. The human who guarded Gate 7, the human who would not move, did not care about whispers or stares. He cared about doing what he had promised to do. Tomorrow he would return to his post, and the day after that, and the day after that. The gate would remain secure. That was all that mattered. 3 weeks passed at the gateway. Park stood at Gate 7 every day. He arrived on time. He left on time. He did not complain. He did not ask for easier assignments. He simply did his job. In those 3 weeks, he had entry to 17 unauthorized individuals. Some had fake credentials. Some had no credentials at all. Some tried to bribe him. Some tried to threaten him. None of them passed through the gate. The station's security officers began to notice. They talked among themselves about the human at Gate 7. Most of them still thought he was strange. A few were beginning to respect him, but the powerful figures he had stopped were not happy. Lisa found in the food hall during a break. She sat across from him with a worried expression on her face. You need to be careful, she said quietly. I work in communications. I hear things. Important people are angry about you turned away. Chewed his food slowly. He had fake credentials. I was right to stop him. Being right does not always matter here, Lisa said. They have influence. They have money. They can make problems for you. What kind of problems? Lisa looked around to make sure no one was listening. The Syndicate of Morrow. Have you heard of them? Had heard the name. The Syndicate was a criminal organization that operated across 12 star systems. They dealt in smuggling, assassination, and corruption. They had contacts everywhere. I have heard of them, he said. The you stopped has connections to the Syndicate. They do not like being embarrassed. They might send someone to test you. Finished his meal and stood up. Then I will be ready. Lisa grabbed his arm. These are not ordinary criminals. The Syndicate has resources you cannot imagine. They have species working for them that can do things you have never seen. I understand, said, but I cannot run from my post because someone might cause trouble. That is not who I am. He walked away before Lisa could argue further. He knew she was trying to help, but he had made a commitment. He would not break it because of fear. 2 days later, the test came. Was standing at Gate 7 during the quiet hours of the station's night cycle. The corridor was nearly empty. The lights had dimmed to save energy. Most beings on the station were sleeping or doing business in other sectors. A figure approached from the shadows. It moved smoothly, almost floating across the floor. As it came closer, recognized the species. Were rare and dangerous. They looked almost human at first glance with pale skin and slender bodies, but their eyes had no pupils. Their eyes were completely white like pools of milk, were telepaths. They could reach into minds and pull out secrets. They could crush a person's will without touching them. The stopped 10 feet from. It smiled with lips that seemed too thin. Good evening, human, it said. Its voice was soft and pleasant. My name is X. I believe we should talk. Do you have authorization to pass through this gate? Asked. Not yet, but I think you will give me authorization very soon. Felt something press against his thoughts. It was like a hand trying to open a door inside his head. He had been trained for this. All consortium security officers received basic mental defense training, but training and reality were different things. The pressure increased, saw images in his mind. He saw his childhood home burning. He saw his mother crying. He saw every failure he had ever experienced, every moment of shame, every time he had not been good enough. You are weak, X whispered inside his head. You know you are weak. Why do you pretend to be strong? Why do you stand here playing guard when you know you are nothing? His hands began to shake. Sweat ran down his face. The visions were so real, he could smell smoke, he could hear screaming. But somewhere beneath the fear, something else remained, a stubborn piece of himself that refused to break. He focused on that piece. He held onto it like a rope in a storm. Human minds were different from other species. Thousands of years of war and deception had shaped them. Humans learned to lie to themselves. They learned to hide thoughts from their own awareness. They built walls inside their own heads without even knowing it. X pushed harder. He found walls. He found doors that led to other doors. He found memories hidden behind other memories. The human mind was not organized like the minds he usually invaded. It was chaos. It was contradiction. It was a maze with no center. "What are you?" X asked, confusion replacing confidence in his voice. Took a deep breath. The visions were still there, but he could see past them now. They were not real. They were just weapons, and weapons could be endured. "I am the guard at this gate," said. His voice shook, but his words were clear. "Your credentials are not valid. Step back." X stared at him. The pressure vanished from his mind as suddenly as it had appeared. The looked genuinely surprised. "You should have broken," X said. "Every other species breaks. How did you resist?" Did not answer. He did not know how to explain it himself. He only knew that he had made a choice, and he had not let go of that choice even when his own mind turned against him. X studied him for a long moment. Then the turned and walked away into the shadows without another word. Stood alone in the quiet corridor. His body was still shaking. His uniform was soaked with sweat. He felt exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical effort. But he was still standing, and the gate was still secure. The next morning, Lisa found him in his quarters. She had heard what happened through her channels. "The syndicate is talking about you," she said. "X reported that you cannot be broken mentally. They do not understand how that is possible." Was sitting on his bed, still recovering. "Neither do I. They have never failed to break a target, never until now." Lisa sat beside him. "You are becoming famous, the wrong kind of famous." "I did not ask for fame. I just refused to let him win." Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been bothering her since they first met. "Why do you do this? Why do you care so much about guarding a door? There are easier jobs, safer jobs." Thought about the question. He thought about his father, who had been a police officer on Earth. He thought about the promise he had made when he joined the military. He thought about all the times people had told him that his efforts did not matter. "Because someone has to," he said finally, "and I said I would." Lisa did not fully understand, but she could see that the answer meant something to him. It was not just words. It was the foundation of who he was. She left him to rest, closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow he would return to Gate 7. The syndicate would probably send something worse than a telepath next time. But whatever they sent would be waiting. That was his job, that was his promise. And he did not break his promises. 2 months had passed since Park first took his position at Gate 7. In that time, he had become something unexpected. He had become a subject of study. Aliens from across the station found reasons to walk past his post. They pretended to have business in the diplomatic corridor. They pretended to be lost. They pretended to need directions, but knew the truth. They came to look at him. They came to see the human who would not move. Some watched him with curiosity. Some watched with respect. A few still watched with scorn, unable to believe that a fragile human could matter in their ancient galaxy, but all of them watched. They were the first to approach him officially. They were a species devoted entirely to knowledge. There was one giant library. Their ships traveled the galaxy collecting information about every civilization they encountered. When they heard about the human at Gate 7, they requested a formal interview. 3 scholars arrived at its post during a quiet afternoon. They were short creatures with gray skin and enormous black eyes. Their bodies were thin and delicate. They carried recording devices and notebooks filled with alien writing. "Officer Park," the lead scholar said, "I am Research Director N. We would like to ask you some questions for our records on humanity." Looked at them carefully. They had no credentials to pass through the gate, but they were not trying to enter. They just wanted to talk. "I can answer questions," he said, "as long as I can continue my duties." They seemed pleased. They activated their recording devices and began. "You have served at this post for 62 standard days," N said. In that time, you have entry to 43 unauthorized individuals. You have been threatened, bribed, and mentally attacked. You have received no promotion. You have received no special recognition. Why do you continue? Considered the question. It was the same question Lisa had asked him. It was the question everyone seemed to want answered. Because it is my job, he said. I was assigned to guard this gate. Until someone tells me otherwise, that is what I will do. But you could request transfer to an easier position. You could seek advancement to a role with more comfort and status. Why remain here? Because someone has to guard this gate, and I said I would. They looked at each other. They made notes in their books. Their enormous eyes blinked with confusion. We do not understand, N admitted. Most species seek maximum personal benefit from their actions. They work to improve their situation. They negotiate for better conditions. You seem to work without expectation of reward. There is a reward, said. The gate stays secure. That is the reward. But you personally receive nothing. I receive the knowledge that I kept my word. For humans, that matters. They spent another hour asking questions. They wanted to know about human history. They wanted to know about human psychology. They wanted to know why a species with such short would devote those lives to concepts like duty and honor instead of personal pleasure. Answered as best he could. He told them about soldiers who died protecting strangers. He told them about firefighters who ran into burning buildings. He told them about doctors who spent their lives fighting diseases in poor countries for almost no pay. Humans call this service, he explained. We believe that some things are more important than ourselves. When they finally left, they looked troubled. Their understanding of the universe had been challenged. They added a new entry to their records on humanity that day. It read, "Species demonstrates irrational commitment to declared purpose regardless of personal benefit. Further study required." The interview spread through the station's information networks. Within days, everyone knew about the conversation. The words had spoken were repeated and discussed. Some aliens thought he was foolish. Some thought he was lying to hide his true motivations. But a small number, a growing number, began to think he might be telling the truth. Lisa found after his shift ended. She had news, and it was not good. "The syndicate is planning something," she said. "I intercepted communications between their operatives. They mentioned Gate 7 specifically. Had been expecting this. After X failed to break him, the syndicate would try a different approach. Mental attacks had not worked. That left other options." "What kind of plan?" he asked. "I do not know the details, but they mentioned someone called the Pale Director. He runs the syndicate operations in this sector. When he takes personal interest in a problem, that problem usually disappears." Thought about what that meant. He thought about the he had faced on his first day. He thought about X and the mental assault he had endured. Those had been tests. Whatever came next would not be a test. "You should request reassignment," Lisa said. Her voice was urgent. "No one would blame you. You have proven yourself already. You do not need to die for this." "If I leave now, what message does that send?" asked. "Every alien who mocked humanity would be proven right. We are weak. We run when things get difficult. We cannot be trusted to hold our ground." "You would rather die than prove them right." Looked at her. In his eyes she saw something she had not noticed before. She saw peace. He had already accepted what might happen. He had made his choice. "I would rather stand at my post," he said. "Whatever comes, I will face it there. That is who I am." Lisa wanted to argue. She wanted to shake him and make him see reason. But she knew it would not help. Park was not acting out of pride or stubbornness. He genuinely believed in what he was doing. He had found meaning in a job that others considered worthless. "Then I will help you," she said finally. "I will monitor communications. If I learn anything specific about the attack, I will warn you." "Thank you," said, "but when it comes, do not get involved. This is my fight, not yours." Lisa nodded, but she had already decided to ignore that instruction. Might be willing to stand alone, but he did not have to. The days passed slowly after that, stood at his post and waited. He watched every being that approached the gate. He stayed alert during the quiet hours when attacks were most likely. He prepared himself mentally for what he knew was coming. The station continued its endless activity around him. Ships arrived and departed. Deals were made and broken. Politics played out in the chambers beyond Gate 7. And through it all, a single human stood guard, knowing that his enemies were watching, planning, and waiting for the right moment. did not know when the attack would come. He did not know what form it would take. He only knew that when it arrived, he would not run. He would not hide. He would do exactly what he had done every day for the past 2 months. He would guard the gate, whatever the cost. The attack came during the deepest hours of the station's night cycle. The corridors were empty. The lights had dimmed to their lowest setting. Most of the station's millions of inhabitants were asleep or occupied elsewhere. Stood at Gate 7 as he always did. His eyes scanned the shadows. His hand rested near his weapon. He had been waiting for this moment for weeks. Now it had finally arrived. 6 figures emerged from the darkness at the far end of the corridor. They moved with a speed and silence that seemed impossible for creatures of their size. As they came closer, saw what the Syndicate had sent to kill him. Assassins. He had heard stories about them but had never seen one in person. They were killers, part organic and part machine. They stood 8 feet tall with bodies built entirely for combat. Their arms ended in blades of sharpened metal. Their skin was armor plating. Their eyes glowed red in the dim light. They had been designed by an extinct civilization to fight wars against the. They were fast enough to catch running prey. They were strong enough to tear through steel. A single could kill a dozen trained soldiers before being stopped. The Syndicate had sent 6 of them. Triggered his silent alarm. The signal would reach Security Command. Help would be dispatched, but the system told him what he already knew. Backup was 12 minutes away. In 12 minutes he would be dead many times over. He had a choice. He could seal the gate from the inside and wait for reinforcements behind its protected walls. The gate was designed to withstand attacks far worse than 6. He would be safe. The mission would be preserved. But something in rejected that option. If he hid now, he would always be the human who hid. Every alien who had mocked his species would be vindicated. The legend growing around Gate 7 would die in a moment of cowardice. Checked his weapon. He took a deep breath. Then he stepped forward to meet the assassins. They spread out as they approached. They were professional killers. They knew how to corner prey. They moved to surround him, cutting off retreat. The lead spoke. Its voice was mechanical, without emotion. Human. The pale director sends his regards. Your death will be quick if you do not resist. The gate stays closed, said. Turn back now. They made a sound that might have been laughter. Brave words from a creature made of soft meat. We were built to kill things far stronger than you. Did not waste more words. He fired his plasma rifle at the overhead lighting panels. The corridor exploded into darkness and sparks. They had enhanced eyes, but even enhanced eyes needed a moment to adjust. In that moment moved. He had trained for this kind of fight his entire career, not against specifically, but against opponents who were bigger, stronger, and faster. Human military doctrine had one answer for such situations. Do not fight fair. Ran toward the nearest wall panel and tore it open. Behind it were coolant pipes that regulated the corridor's temperature. He shot them. Freezing gas sprayed into the air, creating a cloud of white mist that made it harder to see. The charged, dropped to the floor as a blade sliced through the air where his head had been. He rolled and fired upward. The plasma bolt caught in the knee joint where the armor was thinnest. The creature stumbled. Another swung at him, blocked with his rifle. The weapon shattered in his hands. The force of the blow sent him flying backward. He hit the wall hard enough to crack ribs. But he had been expecting that. As he flew back, he grabbed a maintenance tool from his belt and jammed it into a floor panel. Hydraulic fluid sprayed across the floor. The next that charge slipped on the slick surface and crashed into the wall. Pulled himself up, pain screamed through his chest. At least 2 ribs were broken, maybe more. He ignored it. A blade caught his shoulder. It cut deep, grinding against bone, screamed but did not stop moving. He grabbed the blade with his bare hand and pulled the off balance. With his other hand, he shoved a maintenance spike into the creature's eye. The went down. 4 left. Was bleeding badly now. His shoulder was useless. Every breath sent agony through his chest, but he kept fighting. He used every trick he knew. He used the environment as a weapon. He used his own body as bait, taking hits so he could get close enough to strike back. He overloaded a power conduit and blinded 2 with the flash. He tricked another into stabbing through a pressurized pipe, filling its joints with debris. He fought with a savagery that surprised even him. Time became meaningless. The world narrowed to the next attack, the next dodge, the next desperate strike. Stopped thinking about survival. He thought only about the gate behind him, The gate must not be passed. That was all that mattered. When backup finally arrived, they found a scene of carnage. 4 lay dead on the floor. 1 was dying, its mechanical systems failing. 1 had fled into the station's depths, damaged beyond combat effectiveness. And in the middle of it all, Park lay on his back in a pool of his own blood. He had 11 wounds, 3 broken ribs, 1 punctured lung. His shoulder was destroyed. His hands were cut to the bone from grabbing blades. But he was still alive, and he was still between the assassins and the gate. The lead security officer, a named N, knelt beside. The massive alien looked at the small human with something new in his eyes, something that might have been awe. "You held them," and said, "6 assassins, you held them alone." Coughed blood. Speaking was almost impossible, but he managed 2 words. "Gate secure," and looked at the golden door behind them. It was untouched. Not a single blade had reached it. "Gate secure," he confirmed. His eyes closed. He had done what he promised. The rest was in the hands of others now. Medical teams arrived and rushed him to the station's hospital. The doctors worked for hours to save his life. They repaired his lung. They rebuilt his shoulder. They sealed the countless cuts that covered his body. When they were finished, the chief surgeon addressed the security officers waiting outside. "He will live," she said, "but I do not understand how. The damage should have killed him within the first minute of combat. His body kept functioning far beyond what should have been possible." "Humans are strange," and said quietly. "They do not know when to stop." News of the battle spread across the station before morning. By noon, it had reached other systems. By evening, the entire sector was talking about the human guard at Gate 7. The human who had fought 6 assassins alone and won. The human who would not move. Park spent 6 weeks in the medical ward. His body healed slowly. Human medicine had advanced greatly since first contact, but some wounds took time no matter how good the technology was. During those 6 weeks, the universe around him changed. Gate 7 was guarded by a rotating team of warriors, the finest the consortium could provide. They stood at the post with new purpose. They had seen what a single human had done. They would not dishonor that sacrifice with laziness. Visitors came to see almost every day. Security officers from across the station wanted to meet the human who had killed 4 assassins. Diplomats sent messages of respect. Even species that had mocked humanity began to reconsider their opinions. Lisa visited whenever her duties allowed. She brought news from the station and updates on the investigation into the syndicate's attack. The pale director had gone silent. His organization was in chaos. Attacking Gate 7 had been supposed to send a message about the syndicate's power. Instead, it had sent a very different message. "They are afraid now," Lisa told one afternoon. "They spent resources and reputation on this attack. They lost 6 assassins, which are not easy to replace, and the gate remained closed. Everyone knows what that means." "What does it mean?" asked. He was sitting up in his bed, still wrapped in bandages but growing stronger each day. "It means the syndicate is not as powerful as they claimed. It means there are things in this galaxy they cannot buy or break. It means you made them look weak." Did not feel like a hero. He remembered the fight mostly as flashes of pain and desperation. He remembered thinking he was going to die. He remembered being surprised when he woke up in the hospital. "I just did my job," he said. Lisa smiled. She had heard him say those words many times now. She was beginning to understand what they meant to him. When was finally cleared to return to duty, he found the station transformed. The corridors that had once been filled with mocking whispers were now filled with respectful silence. Aliens who had laughed at him now nodded as he passed. Young members of various species watched him with obvious admiration. He returned to Gate 7 and took his position. It felt strange to be back. The corridor had been repaired. No evidence of the battle remained, but everyone who passed knew what had happened here. A delegation arrived within his first hour. Representatives from the Galactic Council, the governing body that oversaw the consortium and most of known space. They were old beings from old species, wrapped in robes that marked their high status. Their leader spoke with formal gravity. "Officer Park, the Council has reviewed your service record and the events of the attack on Gate 7. We are here to make a request." Stood at attention. He did not know what to expect. "Humanity has been part of the galactic community for 60 years, the counselor continued. "In that time, Your species has been viewed as young and inexperienced. Many doubted whether humans could be trusted with important responsibilities. Your actions have changed that perception. Said nothing, he waited for the request. The Council formally asks that humanity contribute more security personnel to key installations throughout the sector. We have seen what your species can do when given the chance. We want more of it. The words hung in the air, understood their weight. This was not just about security. This was about humanity's place in the galaxy. One guard at one gate had shifted how the universe saw his entire species. I will pass your request to my superiors, said. The decision is not mine to make. The counselor seemed pleased by the humble response. We expected nothing less. You have brought honor to your post, Officer Park. The council will not forget. They left with the same formal dignity with which they had arrived. Watched them go, still processing what had just happened. Days turned into weeks. Continued his duties at Gate 7, but things were different now. Other guards, both human and alien, asked to observe his methods. They wanted to learn from the human who had held the line alone. The pale director made one final attempt. Not an attack this time. The syndicate had learned that attacks would not work. Instead, a messenger arrived at Gate 7 with an offer. The director offers wealth beyond measure, the messenger said. It was a small creature, a species did not recognize, clearly terrified to be delivering this message. Citizenship in any system you choose, a private ship, servants, anything you desire. All you must do is step away from the gate for 3 minutes during the next scheduled diplomatic arrival. Looked at the messenger. He thought about the offer, wealth beyond measure, a life of comfort, all for 3 minutes of looking the other way. Tell your director something for me, said. His voice was calm and clear. He still does not understand us. It was never about what we could gain. It was about what we said we would do. The messenger hurried away, never heard from the syndicate again. Years passed, grew older at Gate 7. His hair turned gray. His body collected new scars from smaller incidents. He trained younger guards, both human and alien, passing on what he had learned about duty and commitment. One evening, a young recruit approached him with a question. The young alien was nervous but curious. Officer Park, I have heard the stories about you. Everyone has. But there is something I do not understand. In the beginning, when everyone mocked you, how did you endure it? How did you keep standing here day after day when the entire station thought you were a joke? Considered the question. He had been asked versions of it many times over the years. His answer had never changed. I was not listening to them, he said. I was listening to myself, and I knew what I was. The young thought about this. What were you? Smiled. It was a peaceful smile, the smile of a man who had found his purpose and never let it go. I was the guard at this gate. That was enough. The nodded slowly. Understanding was beginning to form in its compound eyes. Not complete understanding, perhaps, but a start. Returned to his post. The gate stood behind him, golden and ancient, leading to chambers where the fate of civilizations was decided. He had protected it for years. He would protect it for years more. The universe had learned something about humanity during his time at Gate 7. It had learned that humans were small and fragile and short-lived. It had learned that humans could be hurt and broken and killed. But it had also learned that when a human gave their word, that word meant something. When a human said they would not move, they did not move. Park stood at his post as the station's lights dimmed for another night cycle. Ships came and went in the distance. Millions of beings went about their lives, most of them never knowing about the guard at Gate 7. But those who needed to know knew, and the gate remained secure. It would always remain secure. Because someone had to guard it, and Park had said he would.